Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Heal Thyself with Gabe Golden, film producer and writer. I'm Melissa Minnich, live event host for Humanities Team, a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and whose mission is to make conscious living pervasive worldwide by 2040. I'm coming to you live from Austin, Texas. We're excited to have Gabe Golden join us today. Hey, Gabe, how are you?
I'm great. I appreciate being here. Thank you.
Oh, so excited to have you. And where are you connecting from today?
I'm in San Diego.
Fabulous. So we're here over, both of us, near the West Coast, and I wanted to welcome Gabe's audience, the Sign Network, those streaming live through the Humanity Team Facebook page, Humanity Team YouTube channel, and Stream Plus members that are here in the green room with us. Thanks for being members, and some of you that are on camera, welcome everyone. And because it's a live program, we'll have time for some comments and questions. So try to get your questions in within the first 30 to 40 minutes of the program. Post it in the chat and you may get your question answered by Gabe. So let me share a little bit more about Gabe Golden. Gabe Golden is a documentary film producer, writer, and creator of a variety of online media. After film school, Gabe moved to Los Angeles and worked on several productions while writing screenplays and studying theater. Over time, his passion for documentary film and belief that it is an essential form of in-depth journalism led him into several productions. He's directed and produced 12 documentary projects. 6 of them have been aired on PBS affiliates and won both a Telly and Gold Communicator Award. His work has explored drought, wildfire, endangered species, soil health, alternative medicine, and spiritual transformation. Inspired by his 30-year challenge with the autoimmune disease, rheumatoid arthritis, and a remarkable healing journey, Gabe produced and directed Lighting the Path, a feature film and 14-episode series that tells his story and several others as they navigate the path to healing from autoimmune and Lyme disease. His most recent project is Awakening, a documentary series that tells the stories of spiritual luminaries, as well as Soulstream, a podcast exploring the process of our true nature. Welcome to the program, Gabe.
Oh, thank you. So appreciate you guys having me.
Well, let's start at the beginning. You had a health condition that began around the age of 14. And during those early years, you endured lots of the traditional treatments, medications. Can you kind of tell us, give us a little bit of the background and tell us, what became the turning point for you to investigate other options for healing?
Well, after so many years of medications and ultimately, steps forward and steps back as far as pain symptoms and really not success with treating the underlying cause in any way. I had been on medications for probably 7 or 8 years. It was in my early 20s and was getting side effects of those medications as well as increased pain. And all the tools that the rheumatologists and mainstream medicines had, that they had to work with were more medicines and really no other options. And this was almost 20 plus years ago. And I was, just beginning to get the internet as a good resource and sort of doing deep dive into what else I could do to treat this so-called incurable disease that ultimately, we learn is not incurable. They're very difficult sometimes, but I sort of hit this wall of without a choice of, either I could just keep taking more medicines and take the consequences of that, or trust that there might be another way. I really didn't have an answer. I just kind of intuitively felt like there could be another way to go with this. And so I walked away from the mainstream physician. As you see in the film, actually, that was kind of a key point where I just walked away from that and hobbled out of the Kaiser Hospital and went looking for other options.
Beautiful. And I think that's always, we're gifted a dis-ease, something to show us a path to our own healing in different ways. But I want to start with what you just said, a supposed uncurable disease. I have the belief that everything is healable, and as I'm sure you probably do now. And so let's talk a little bit about society and medicine and this idea of something being incurable and how that is affecting us as a society.
Yeah, and it's hard to believe that even when I was diagnosed at 14, the medicines that they're putting people on now are some of the same medicines 30 years later. I mean, it's pretty alarming. And or there are new versions of immunosuppressive drugs that just suppress the immune system to suppress symptoms. that entire mainstream model is one that just treats symptoms. And I had to let go of resentment around the fact that they're not solving really any problems. They're just treating symptoms. And I had to understand that's just what that is. That's just what that does. And those doctors don't, a lot of them mean well, but they just have not got any training on the broader look at all of biology, really. And when you start diving now, of course, we have so many wonderful practitioners and functional medicine doctors and biological medicine doctors who really understand biology and understand how all the systems work together, and understand that, we have certainly there's a need at times for sort of symptom relief in medicines, and emergency medicine is incredible, but ultimately just the only tool being a drug to just sort of get you through the day and keep going is not the answer. It's time to redefine really what a doctor is. I think we all have to have a different expectation of what healthcare is and what a doctor is and what a doctor does, because a true doctor is actually really interested in the underlying cause of what's going on with you. They will investigate that and they will ultimately keep going and keep searching and keep trying things with you and work with you and educate you so that you can actually be empowered to make progress.
I think it's really fascinating that we have to redefine the way that we think of a doctor. I was so mind blown when I found out some of the indigenous cultures and in Japan that they actually pay the doctor when they are well and they go for wellness care. And then once they get sick, they stop paying, because then the doctor hasn't done his job at keeping the person well. And so then they stop paying until they find, the core root or the thing that then brings them back to wellness. And I think we here in, the Western world have very much moved into instead of preventative and how do we stay well is like just pile on the pills, pile on these things. And we're going to get into one of the first clips from one of your episodes, but it talks about this idea, which I think fits into this, about we are here in a place where we lived in Newtonian physics, where everything was about the physical body, right? Like it was about physical. So a pill, something like that is what is all that we've known. And now things are starting to shift. And we're starting to see a movement. And so what are you seeing shifting and the movement that through doing your documentary and through the episodes that you're starting to notice?
I'm very hopeful. I think there's a lot of momentum, and there's a lot of us that have just decided to look elsewhere and start really we've already redefined what we want as a doctor, and we've also redefined our own expectations of what we can do, what we can heal, and how we can approach this. And we've taken a lot of people are taking responsibility for lifestyle and becoming educated on, what do we do to ultimately truly heal, and all of the different and exploring all the different components of what that really looks like, because it can be pretty overwhelming right when you start. It's not just diet's a huge thing, right? And it's not just detoxification and cleaning up your environment and taking away potential burdens and environmental burdens to the body. You have stress management, we have trauma that we most all need to deal with on some level from our past, our current stressors, emotions. So there's just a real huge piece that is missed, particularly in mainstream medicine and even in alternative medicine. A lot of the time, I think one of the main things is that healing of the nervous system is not addressed enough. People talk about meditation, or we talk about certain things, but it's not really addressed in a cohesive way, in a really linear way, and saying, like, actually, you should start there. You should start with trauma, start with meditation, start with learning to calm the nervous system down as much as possible, because you can do a whole variety of diet and modalities and a variety of things that are really good for you, but your body really, if it's not in a space to heal, if it's just nervous system is just too overactive or imbalanced, then you're ultimately not going to be able to, your body's not going to be able to utilize all of those tools. And so that was the big piece for me and for several others that I've encountered along the path. And it seems like that conversation is getting more and more, at least mainstream in the area, in our world, where we are doing events like this, and where people are really aggressively interested in health. It's an exciting time. There's a lot out there now. Now it's kind of more, how do people navigate that? And, where do you put your time and energy if you're really on a healing path?
Yeah. The nervous system is, we hear the the saying, as above, so below. And so if we're only in the above, if we're only out in the spiritual, out in that meditation space, if we're not dropping in the body, the below, this is, we came into this physical being, and the nervous system, creates pathways. We have sacred geometry in our bodies. We have all these things that are so powerful for us but I agree. One of the biggest things for my own healing was through the nervous system. So let's watch the video clip about the nervous system that we have from one of your episodes, and then we'll come back and talk about that.
All right, thank you.
In my views, biological medicine is kind of a merger of different systems of medicine. And when I say systems of medicine, everybody is familiar with certain aspects of medicine, whether that's conventional medicine or alternative medicine or Chinese medicine, and it breaks down into modalities such as prescriptive drugs, vitamins, herbs, acupuncture. And biological medicine is a merger, or I'd say a marriage of all of these, and it's based on what human physiology is capable of doing, which everybody, when we went to medical school, said, this is an amazing organism, this is its potential. Sometimes it gets sidetracked into doing things that it shouldn't do. We know based on acute problems, those can be corrected, but there's this whole new system of, we'll say, disease called chronic disease. And I think that's where biological medicine kind of got its shine from, was that it was able to take a lot of the diagnostics and combine it with a lot of the therapies. Everybody has the capability to heal themselves. Everybody has the capacity to be their best. And what is the, we'll say, right combination to figure out how to make that person perform at the best? And when we're looking at biological medicine, we're saying, here's the capability of the body to get to this level of health. Sometimes disease kind of steps in the way, but the body has the capability to do it. It's the doctor's job to look and see what's, we'll say, limiting the body from doing that, and then using different therapies and whatever they may be to accelerate the ability of the body to not only heal, but in my opinion, to get performance out of that particular organ or out of that organism or out of that person.
So biological medicine is really about whole person medicine. It's individualized medicine. We may have 10 patients come in with the very same diagnosis, the very same name of the disease, but yet they have 10 completely different treatment plans, because their particular issues or particular problems are due to an imbalance of one or many more of their different organ systems. In this clinic, what we find generally, any patient with a chronic illness, we'll say, has almost always got a minimum of 5 different organ systems that are out of balance. Could be their digestive system, could be their endocrine system, it's nearly always the lymphatic system. Or it could be the cardiovascular, nervous system. It's just a combination of things, and how it affects us, how it affects the individual is then what we ultimately are going after. And so that really it's a massive difference in going to a practitioner who practices biological medicine to a practitioner who just practices conventional models. So it's a much more all-encompassing, totally individualized. We don't treat disease, we treat patients.
Well, one way to define resilience is...
So the last piece that he said was, we don't treat disease, we treat patients. And so for yourself, let's dive a little bit more into your own story. When looking at yourself as a whole system and being able to heal your rheumatoid arthritis, what did you discover were some of the underlying core causes for you that started at the age that finally showed up as a disease at the age of 14 that you had to work on to heal, to get to a place of healing for yourself?
Yeah, it's it was a mystery. It took some time and some unraveling. I think what it really came down to, as I became educated, and those 2 doctors who I love very much, both are incredible and are true physicians who keep looking and keep going, and their skill, their intuition, their passion, their continuing education that they've always continued to do long beyond medical school, as well as the technology that they use, the diagnostics. They're really utilizing amazing diagnostics these days for us really having more targeted treatments, even if they are considered alternative. And so that piece was really huge. I mean, I was on a long path long before I found those doctors, and I would say, you know, made a lot of progress with nutrition and optimizing my immune system, detoxifying the medications out of my body, optimizing hormone levels. So gut health really was one of the first places I started, and healing the gut and optimizing the gut, of course, we know is very, very important for preventing ultimately leaky gut, or ultimately having undigested macromolecules of food getting into your system, getting into the bloodstream and creating an immune reaction. So the weakening of the digestive system causing that is, I think, something that most of us are probably dealing with on some level because of all of the environmental toxins and glyphosate and, you know, all of the processed foods and burdens and things that sort of take their toll. But it's also something that can heal pretty quickly is if you make those changes. So that one foundation is great. Sometimes that's not enough, though. There's a lot of other components, and there can be deeply embedded traumas in the nervous system that we're holding on to, and sometimes infections that can be lingering deep in the tissues. In my case, it seemed like I had pneumonia when I was a kid and was in the hospital for about a week. It was a pretty severe case. Recovered, and then about a year and a half later, I got rheumatoid arthritis, and then many, many years later, we discovered that there is a pretty good correlation between mycoplasma pneumonia lingering and finding its way into the joints, and then can be reactivated if your immune system gets weak. So again, treating the infection in a way also was helpful. But the infection is not necessarily the cause, right? It's like, why would the body be unable to just eradicate the infection? And that's looking deeper at all of those other factors, including diet, stress levels, nutrition, nervous system issues, the traumas, things like that. So it comes down, it's a broad conversation around what is the entire body burden, and how do we sort of hit all of the low-hanging fruit that's easy to ease that burden off of the body to start with. And, really treating your organs of elimination are great before you even try a lot of aggressive modalities, because you sort of want to have all of your organs prepared to detoxify and adapt to those therapies that you might be doing, where you are going to be pulling heavy metals maybe out of the body or treating infections. A lot of these things can cycle and cause flare-ups for people. And a lot of that is just because you're not able to actually eliminate everything fast enough. So really just sort of having a guide, a really good physician that can guide you in the steps that gently, what can your body handle, and what should we prioritize? Where should we start? That broad approach, along with, like with those doctors, they very much understand the nervous system and the importance of that. At that clinic, they don't necessarily treat trauma, but they encourage people to explore a lot of different modalities, including somatic therapies, or psychological therapy, or a variety of things that can treat trauma. So that was another path I went down, which you see in the next clip. The healing the nervous system is some of where I was going to explore how to navigate that piece. Those two pieces coming together, that was really when I stopped getting so many steps forward and steps back, it seemed like I sort of hit the finish line.
So you started, and it sounds very much like when the biomedicine in that, it was like whole system, the physical, all of the different organs, all of the elimination, all of those types of things, like really creating, it's like Maslow's law, like what's the first step? Like creating a foundation for myself physically in my body, and then being able to say, okay, now I can go and move towards like, what are the causes, the root things that allowed me to be open to infection, open to, like if our systems are completely whole and healed, we won't actually get an infection if we're even around something like that. And so it's like, okay, so what then was the core? And that's where you're saying, and then the next thing was like looking at my trauma and looking at the things that are stored deep in our cells and our tissues, that then allow for the openings to have these physical issues show up.
Yeah, exactly. And it's amazing, once you have do some work, for example, like with a somatic therapist, a really good skilled somatic therapist who can, I had the good fortune of working with someone who does somatic experiencing, a version of that. When you get the body really relaxed and if someone guides you, it's really amazing how once the body settles, really settles, emotion will just come out. Sometimes things that just need to surface. You may not even know what it's from. You may identify a trauma that you need to explore and work with. You may not. In my case, a lot of it was just held energy. Might have been anger and frustration and limitation from so many years of pain and limitation that I had dealt with. I was holding a lot of things. It could have been from certain things from my youth that we did explore a bit, but inevitably so much just released out of my body. I shook, I cried, and it was very, very healthy. And the nervous system has just been holding that for a long time until it feels safe enough. And it's hard to believe that we don't feel safe enough at some point. Even when we go to bed at night, you think you'd be relaxed enough the body would let go, but it doesn't. And you just need a little bit of guidance and to sort of teach your body how to let go. And so for me personally, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to release trauma, obviously, but for me, that was a really powerful piece.
Yeah, I've also used a lot of somatic healing from all the compound trauma from my childhood and developmental trauma. And, the saying that that's been coined is the body keeps score. It really does. And it's in a cellular level, and even down, I'm studying DNA, into the level of our DNA that it can code the way that we are. We know through epigenetics and things that this is all the way down. And so healing the nervous system through that somatic healing can be so powerful. So if we can watch that next episode, that next clip from the episode, let's see, that'd be great.
Well, one way to define resilience is able to move forward even in the face of challenges, right? So it's sort of like bounce back, right? How quickly can you bounce back or continue to move forward when something in life is dysregulating, unexpected, scary? So really the ultimate goal is to help people find their way back to their natural state, which is present, connected, available, alive, energized. Primarily the clients that I work with come in because they have either single event trauma, which is like a car accident, veterans from being overseas, or early developmental trauma, which I actually probably is the majority of my practice, which means that they've had confounding events from an early age that created some kind of trauma in their system. So the idea is that when clients come in here and we work from a more holistic perspective with the idea that trauma actually gets stored in the cells and in the tissues. So we're not just doing talk therapy, we're also working with the body and with the nervous system to help identify how trauma might be stuck in the tissue and help that move through, giving clients more of an access to their capacity for connection and presence and availability in their life.
And so is there a term for trauma that's more kind of, we'll say, subtle collective type trauma over time as opposed to a traumatic event, like one significant event?
So that's developmental trauma, are these what you might call, they're not really smaller in the moment, but they might seem smaller than, let's say, a 10-car pileup crash. And so much of what is traumatizing is not in the event itself, but it's in how the person's nervous system responds to what's happening, right? So you could have two children in a very similar environment, and one child could accumulate traumatic stress where the other child wouldn't. And that is dependent upon so many factors, right? Their own kind of innate resiliency, other supports that they might have in their life at the time. Something that stands out for me, especially for the group of clients that I see, is that what they found was that witnessing violence, so whether that means a child was growing up in a home where there was domestic violence or there was some kind of physical unrest in some way, witnessing that and being the recipient of any kind of emotional abuse, right? So shaming, criticizing, blaming, put down, stonewalling, was actually more impactful in a negative way than children who experienced physical, sexual, and emotional abuse combined. But they didn't have the component of actually witnessing physical violence between other people. And so that's an important piece of information for me to have, because there are a lot of clients who come in who have early developmental trauma who often minimize what they experienced, because they'll say to me things like, well, but I was never actually sexually abused. Nobody actually ever laid a hand on me. So they very easily discredit the emotional climate in the home and how that then had an impact on their own vulnerable nervous system, as well as witnessing the emotional climate between other people in the home. We also use touch work. So touch work meaning, we could call it energy work, but it's a way of supporting the nervous system in finding its capacity for that downregulation. So some work that I really like to do is kidney adrenal work, which just means offering some concentrated support in the region of the kidneys and the adrenals. Oftentimes that gives people an experience of feeling really supported, like someone's got their back. And when we feel like someone has our back, the world is a little bit of a less scary place. So I'm not actually manipulating anything or making your body do anything. I'm just holding the space to let whatever wants to come through, come through. I believe, and I think a lot of, holistic or body, mind, spirit oriented practitioners would agree that the body is primed for healing. Like that's our natural inclination is towards what works and what is healthy and what feels good.
Beautiful. I love one of the things that she said, Gabe, was about the difference between witnessing trauma or emotional trauma compared to the physical. I had both in my life. And so but I had never heard that before about the witnessing and how it seems to can make even more of a difference depending on the person's nervous system. And what do you think? I'm curious of what your thoughts are on why that might be the case.
It's a great question. I think that that's pulled from the ACE study, the Adverse Childhood Experiences study, and that was a big Kaiser study, actually quite a mainstream study. Yeah. And but it did prove that almost always there were correlations between any kind of trauma in the home and disease later in life, or a lot of different issues later in life. That particular piece around witnessing, I think what it says is that it's all kind of relative. Like there can be traumas that someone might experience that might seem trivial or minor later in life, or they might seem trivial or minor in comparison to what somebody else went through. But it doesn't mean it didn't affect that person in a really traumatic way, in a really significant way, where the body did keep the score on that and is still holding on to it years later. So it's just really opens that up, I think, to make sure that it proves that many of us probably are holding things that we think are not particularly important, or that would really impact us in such a significant way. So yeah, it's definitely, when you're exploring this work, I think you'll uncover layers of things that will surprise you.
Yeah. I think it was about 15 years ago when I first took the ACE score and found out I was a 10 out of 10 by the age of 10. And the impact of understanding what that had done, because I had autoimmune, I was very sick, I had all sorts of things going on, and really realizing those things. But when she said that the witnessing could be even, because I had the sexual trauma, I had all this stuff, but I witnessed massive abuse and some, my father raping a woman and all these different things and stuff. And so the witnessing of those things I didn't realize was so profound in finding my own healing through that. And so I think that, again, when I know working with my own clients and things like that, that we need to pay attention to. So many people come to us and say, oh, well, I had a great childhood, right? Everything was fine. Like I didn't experience anything yet. I still have this, and this going on. And then we get to look at that and say, well, just because your brain doesn't process that or as a trauma doesn't mean your nervous system hasn't processed that.
Right. And I think to your point, I think our biology is designed to defend us and keep us alive and help us survive. And it does, in those experiences, it will store, it will put things aside, allowing you to keep functioning. And a lot of times we may not even remember these things until later, and they surface. And I think it's just a matter of the body holding as much as possible to allow you to continue forward. But we're supposed to reset, right? We live in a very different, also environment than we used to, where we don't have long hours of listening to the wind or the streams anymore, or being connected to nature, where maybe the nervous system would calm to the point where it might actually, release some of these things. We live in an environment with a lot of stimulus that just never quite turns off. And so there's a variety of factors about why the nervous system may continue to hold that stuff and never really release it until we really kind of make that time and that effort to do that.
Yeah, animals in the wild, when they experience trauma, they shake immediately. Like you'll see them shaking and shaking everything off and releasing it out of our systems. But we here, we're, be silent, be stiff, hold strong, don't cry. Like all of these messages that we've been told are actually not allowing our system to release. So now that you've gone through this somatic healing and you've healed at the physical level, what are some of the things that have changed in your life, or how do you notice, like on a daily basis, the difference for you?
That's a great question. It's been a gift that has continued to expand within me. I mean, it certainly opened me also to a much more deeper spiritual journey. I think being more in my body, being able to feel my body, changing the relationship I had with pain to something that I needed to listen to really see, to connect to, just to basically also access a deeper sense of my true nature, which ultimately helped me feel much more self-love, much more love for this experience rather than a judgment. For so many years, I carried judgment around it. I wanted to conquer the pain. I was going to solve this pain rather than listening and really kind of deeply trying to understand what it was that it was trying to say to me. And as that, I allowed that and opened that, it has opened me to a deeper connection to, I would call it my true nature, the divine self, which is a beautiful space that as you can spend more time in, often with meditation, you then get an experience of that shared energy that it's like the underlying fabric of what we are, right? It's this some deeper level of love, of energy that connects us all. And it's a resource that becomes something that starts to influence your life on a more regular basis. So, and then you can explore that from a standpoint of your own spiritual exploration. And any healing journey can be a spiritual journey, I think, and ultimately really is one if you allow that and open that door. But even if you're not into a spiritual approach or want to associate or relate to it that way, just opening yourself to understanding your biology and understanding what you're holding. And it for me not only helped me heal, but I think it has a body awareness about it. So I'm much more aware, not just of physically where I might be holding stress, but I might be much more conscious of my emotional state. Where am I, am I holding a certain emotion? Am I this new level of awareness around how am I thinking, and what is that thinking doing to my biology? What is the emotion and or physical experience that's a result of those thoughts? And so the body becomes this great source of feedback. So the more in touch you are with that kind of the signal that your body's giving you, the more you get this opportunity to rethink and shift your perspective and be better to yourself, and nurture yourself, and realize being human is kind of difficult sometimes, and loving ourselves more really gives you the capacity to just live life lighter and also give more to other people.
It's so beautiful. We were talking about that connection to that field, like when our systems are shut down, when our nervous system is shut down, when those things we actually can't plug into, the field of pure love, whatever you want to call it, consciousness, the quantum field, the ununified field, like that field is like we're literally unplugged. And so you get to plug into that. And whether you believe, want to talk about it in the depths of spirituality or in the depths of science or whatever words you want to use, there's an energetic exchange with the field that goes on that actually energizes you. My friends, they say, you're always high on life. You're like an Energizer bunny. And I was like, I feed off the field. I feed off of this energy of love. And that's because our systems are aligned. And then that allows you to have this deeper basis in your body and in your system. So I love that, the power of what can happen when we start to shift these things. So that brings us into our next clip, which is about the science of energy, right? We get to actually talk about like what is this with this piece of that? So if you can go ahead and share that next clip for us, the science of energy.
One of the reasons that we've always looked to food, diet, and we're okay with thinking about drugs affecting our bodies and being medicine, and they can be, right, is because we have just been very rooted for the last several hundred years in this zeitgeist, if you will, of materialism, right? That everything is based on the physical. And so it's been really comfortable for us to think about, well, I know that I can augment my healing practices, my healing process by what I eat, or what I ingest and what I choose to ingest. And now we're learning that ingesting isn't just about ingesting physical substances, right? It's about our environment. It's about everything that we take in, literally everything that we're digesting, our relationships, our surroundings, our own reactions, right? That's all ingesting, material as well, but it's not necessarily always physical, and yet it affects us. In undergraduate, I found myself really wanting to study the effects of music on healing and music on the brain and the body. And it wasn't actually until I had my first energy healing session in my 20s that I thought, oh, this is how one could study vibration, because I could feel it. When I had that session, it was so profound for me. I watched myself, I sort of watched myself experiencing something that was very palpable, that I could feel. I could feel this vibration in my body. And not only that, I could feel the link of that vibration with my emotions. All of a sudden, all this stuff was coming up for me. I was, being exposed to old thoughts, feelings that were coming up when this healer was placing their hands at a certain part of my body. And we weren't talking. Right? So the scientist part of me was like, what is going on? This is fascinating. Something really amazing is happening here, and it's related to vibration. So I've done a number of studies myself on, exploring the impact of energy healing practices in cancer, in PTSD, and in other clinical populations, because, if we really want to move along the healthcare system in ways where we can integrate some of these practices for our patients, we do need the science. We do need to do those randomized control trials where we compare and explore, how healing works, and is it really effective? Does it help? And how does it help? Does it affect the immune system? Does it affect the hormonal system? So we do those kinds of studies as well.
Okay, so this is my favorite topic as someone who works with energy medicine and light and frequency and sound, and who's been doing studies with growing telomeres through these things. What are some of the different modalities of healing that are not tangible that you've been using in your life, and what have you discovered and found, and what do you really love?
Well, it's a great. First of all, I would recommend Shamini. That's Shamini Jan, and I would recommend her book. It's called Healing Ourselves, and it's about biofield science. So she's really doing a great job of sort of opening that conversation in a way of merging science and spirituality. And so you get this kind of language that's, you can see how this is all kind of coming together, and frequency and light and is all part of this conversation. Because if we are energetic beings, and ultimately the emotions that we're experiencing is dictating the frequency in which our cells are vibrating and our organs are functioning at, then we can affect that in a variety of ways, whether that's just treating the nervous system and being in a good, calm, positive state more often than not, or treating with different modalities and a lot of the biohacking devices that are out there now, from infrared and red light therapy, pulsed electromagnetic field therapy. These are in the film. You see us using some of these different devices that treat the body directly. So one of the things that is interesting about this merging, earlier we talked about and we saw the doctors in biological medicine using a lot of technology, and then now we're kind of talking the nervous system, and then we're talking also spirituality, and yet you combine all of this because in biological medicine, those devices are treating energetically the body directly. So we're kind of bypassing chemistry and moving just to physics. So you give the mitochondria, the cells, directly the energy from light or from frequency, and we see very measurable results. and you will move the cells, you will stimulate the cells, you give the cells energy directly. And of course, sunlight is great. You can do that, but sunlight too much can obviously cause damage. It's a little difficult sometimes to target it. And so a lot of these therapies that use light and frequency, and there's a whole variety now that, it's really kind of expanding as the technology's gotten better to deliver that. Those are some of my favorites. I think everybody really would benefit from having an infrared and red light therapy panel at home that you can use daily, because you are just in 20 minutes giving your body an extraordinary amount of energy, just right onto the, right into, whether it's you want to aim it at your face, your thyroid, your gut, joint pain, whatever you're dealing with, you're feeding energy right into the body. And of course, that's also being explored aggressively with regard to dementia, Alzheimer's, treating the brain directly with infrared light. So it's interesting how light and frequency, with both technology as well as, getting our bodies and our cells to resonate at a better frequency with meditation and deep breathing and, those practices as well. You combine all that together and you're nurturing your biology really well.
Yeah. Well, we know that, the studies will show everything has frequency. Everything is a energetic frequency. And then that then becomes the light. And then from there, so there's this lineage of, like, if you go all the way back, well, it's all everything. We have a frequency that we can tap into. We can work through that. Ancient wisdom, I always talked about the first word was the sound, or, and then we hear the saying, I am light. We literally have light receptors in our pineal gland. We have light receptors in our DNA. Our cells produce UV light. So the saying, I am light, which we've known for all this time, is now being proven through the science. And being able to bring in this experience of, like, oh my gosh, here we can use these new biohacking tools that are bringing back ancient wisdom to allow us to show how we can heal. And I really believe, and I'm wondering what you're curious of. What I speak about is, I think that sound and frequency and light are the medicine of the future. I think it is the way that we're going to heal so many different things. Because now we understand on a quantum level and on a deeper level the way that our systems work, and so we're moving out of these biology into quantum biology and into biomedicine and into these ways of saying there's something much deeper that we've completely missed about our systems.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're going to find there's a variety of ways to achieve that. I mean, we're already learning that, and I think we're kind of gradually going to narrow down some of the ones that are most effective. But I think we're unlimited in what we can do and how fast this is moving. There's areas also, in that same episode and in the film, we talked to not just Shamini, but we talked to Lynn McTaggart, who's written several books and on the science of the field. And she's got an entire series called The Intention Experiments, which is a great book as well, which is just so cool to have, because you can open that book to any one of the chapters, and it's a study. It's just a study that she has either dove into and kind of gives you the details on, or she also conducted with other PhD level molecular biologists, and they will look at our ability to affect the growth of a plant or the growth of healing, or healing and facilitating healing in somebody. And the results are amazing. It's just incredible, and how they've been able to replicate this over and over. And then she also gets into talking about group healings and putting together, she calls it the power of 8. You put 8 people together and they can set an intention for someone to heal. And the incredible results that they see with just not only that person that they're aiming their intention at, but the feedback that comes back to the 8 people and the improvements in their lives. It's almost like just everyone setting that frequency together. You start bathing in it and you can't really escape it. You're not aiming it only at the other person. Somehow it's affecting you as well.
Yeah, beautiful. So we have a couple of questions from the audience that I'd like to dive into for you, see if you have any questions. And if anybody else wants to put a question into the chat. So we have some time here to go over some questions that you might have about the movie, the documentary, the episodes that Gabe Golden has been sharing with us. There's so much wisdom and information here. Let's see. We have from Debbie. Debbie's asking, what percentage of the film industry can be classified as holistic? Not sure that you might know the answer to that, but we can.
Interesting question. Yeah. I mean, as far as how much of it is actually producing holistic media, maybe that's kind of how I would interpret that question. Not enough. I mean, I think it's a movement. We've got more documentaries these days, but you know what's interesting about so much of the information that comes out in documentaries and series is oftentimes they are series and episodes that go and go, but you don't always see the stories of actual healing that unfold over many years. And that's what Lighting the Path is, you know, in the feature film, is we actually show that story of several of us fighting chronic illness and all the trial and error and the things that we went through. And so you actually see kind of an authentic experience and witness healing as it unfolds. And I'd love to see more of that. I'd love to see people following people on their journeys more so than just seeing and there's a lot of great interviews out there. And I mean, my episodes that I took all the extra footage and built these episodes into more educational components and modules for people because we want to have a deeper dive. But really, I think seeing more of those stories unfold would be really cool.
So from the stories that you've shared, is there one besides obviously your own? Was there one that really stuck out to you?
Well, yeah, I mean, in the film, a good friend of mine, his wife had chronic Lyme disease and initially diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. Also, that's how we met. Was in a support group that I had started, and so I started filming her journey. And she actually was one of the few people in the support group that really wanted to know everything that I knew, and then she took that and ran with it. And she was, you know, as more aggressive even than I was and determined to heal. And that actually re-inspired a lot of my own you know, momentum around healing because I was still in a space of, you know, 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. And she actually found the biological medicine doctors in Arizona. And so it was great to be kind of having a teammate, you know, to join up with and someone who inspired me. And I met several other people that in that same way. And she ultimately, it was, you know, not an easy path, but she did it as well. And she made a lot of progress until she did the inner journey as well. That was for her as well as, you know, a huge piece of letting go of a lot of trauma and nervous system stress, and ultimately found her way to climbing mountains again. So.
Thank you for sharing that. It's such a beautiful story. Rosa is a question from YouTube. Rosa's asking, is it right that distilled water can detoxify the body?
I think you should be careful with distilled water because it doesn't have any minerals. You know, I think you're probably better with, I mean, spring water can be great as long as it's, you know, you want it reasonably clean. Water is a fascinating subject. There are, you know, that you can dive down that rabbit hole in a lot of ways. I think that, you know, making sure you're drinking filtered water that is not getting a filter that will mostly get out fluoride and chlorine and all of the stuff that are, you know, that we're putting in it and our city water systems are putting in. I think if you can get rid of that, that's your main thing. And it will extract, you're basically getting water that doesn't have any minerals by that point. But then you can actually add in some liquid minerals, some good sea salt into mineral to make your water mineralized again. I think that's a great way to structure the water. There's some talk about structured water and mineralizing water is helpful that way. But so many of us are mineral deficient because even our soils are so turned over now that even if we're eating really healthy, there's just not enough. And I think our ancestors got a lot of minerals from just drinking really good mineral water from the earth. And we don't do that anymore. We pull it out and then we filter it and add all these chemicals. So good filter, add some minerals to your water. That's what I do.
Yeah, there's a big conversation going on about water right now, structured water, hydrogenized water, right? You know, the way that our body accepts water, that, you know, the plasma crystalline in our system and what we've done to destroy our water systems, I think is so great question there. Let's see. Are there any other questions coming through? And if not, okay, not yet. If you guys want to leave another question, go ahead and put that in there. I want to talk about you know, in your conversations with guests from your film, one of the things that you talk about is that you didn't want it to just be all about the happy endings and everything being bright and shiny and all that, but you also wanted to really discuss how the realness of these situations and how healing can occur. Can you talk a little bit about like your decision to not just make it about the you know, happy endings and how you think this makes it different from what other people might be doing?
Yeah, that's such an important piece, and I think it was an attempt to be authentic to the experience, to my own experience, because as aggressive as I was initially diving into alternative medicine and detoxing, and I tried all these different things, it was really tough. I mean, I didn't just get well overnight or try some acupuncture and change my diet and it was okay. A month later I was better. I mean, I did have dramatic results within a year initially, which was really nice, but I also had some great guidance and, was treating my body in a variety of ways. But then I had setbacks and those setbacks took me back, not to where I was initially, but it was a long path of really many, many years. You see in the film where there were times I gave up filming. I was in a lot of pain, with my knees, like using a cane, even though I was a lot better in terms of my upper body. I had made some progress, but it was a really difficult journey. And as I met so many other people who were as dedicated as I was and had tried all these different things with regard to diet and modalities, and it was like you make progress and then there would be some way in which the body was returning to this pattern, this default pattern of, particularly with autoimmune disease or with like chronic Lyme, you're dealing with something that's just a trigger that just keeps putting the body back in that space of inflammation. And that's where I think the nervous system component became, and the spiritual journey really became the big piece. So, and I want people to really know that, if you're hurting or if you're struggling or if you've tried a lot of different things, like you haven't done anything wrong. I mean, I commend you for continuing to go forward and to believe that you can be well and to keep trying things. And, but hopefully I'd like to think that the information that, that's in my film and series, it's not the panacea perfect for everyone, because healing is a very unique journey, but you can get a really good foundational education from the film and from the episodes, kind of giving you your own health ideology to work with. And once you've got that, you really can help your doctor, preferably a biological medicine doctor, a functional medicine doctor, to help you help yourself. You'll get a better intuitive guide about where you should prioritize healing. What should I actually do? Can get overwhelming with like all the supplements and all these things that are out there. I don't get caught up in all of that. Don't get caught up in the idea that, I can't afford all of these different treatments and modalities, so I'm just not going to get well. Don't tell yourself that. Don't tell your body that, because you have an innate ability to heal. Your body wants to be well. It doesn't need really any of that stuff. All that stuff is great to help if you've got the resources. I think it can speed things up. It can make, overall your resilience better. But really, you just need to nurture yourself. You need to potentially get some good somatic work, nurture the nervous system, sleep well, get grounded, put your feet on the earth and get grounded daily, optimize your vitamin D level, get some good minerals, eat some good food. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit that you can start with, and that just, again, be easy with yourself about it, because these chronic illnesses are difficult, and there's a variety of different reasons why you might be dealing with what you're dealing with. And I would just say one more thing with regard to that. Diagnostics are wonderful now. There's a lot of great diagnostics. If you can't necessarily think you're going to afford a whole bunch of treatments, it's worth the investment to get some good diagnostics to rule out things like mold toxicity or heavy metal toxicity. You may even have, one of the big things that my doctors talk a lot about is the health of the mouth, and oral health. How you can have an old root canal that can be, you may not have any idea, is feeding bacteria into your system and ultimately triggering, your immune system to react, and you could go years and not even realizing that.
Thank you for saying that and for that conversation, because I think that so many of us think that, oh my gosh, I'm healing, and the path to healing is linear, and it's only ever going to get better. And, this is the thing. And I know with myself, I had psoriasis and eczema over my whole body, and I healed it. And then, in 2017, it was healed. And then 5 years later, in 2021, it came back. And I was like, oh, what was the trigger? I thought I'd healed this thing. And then it was another cycle of moving through that. And I think it's such an important thing for people to understand, because I think people start to give up at times, right? When you're like, okay, here I'm healing this thing, and I've been going up and up, and then all of a sudden I feel worse than I did, or something. And I was like, I think it's like peeling back a layer of an onion or rose petals. Like you're now to the next level, and there's going to be pieces in there that then you can heal again. But these symptoms or these things might show back up, but that doesn't mean that you're not at another level, that there's not something there that you haven't healed. And I just think that that's one of the most important conversations is to tell people is like, keep going. So that episode on Humanities Team, episode number 4, I think it was, is that episode number 5, really talks about the stories from the past. So make sure you watch that. Okay, so here, just another couple of questions, and then we'll be wrapping up. One of the questions is, who were your original mentors?
Good question. One of the first people that I dove into 20 years ago, and he was more well known in the 90s, is Gary Null. Gary Null wrote many books on nutrition and health and detoxification. He's still going, and in his 80s, and I think he's a great model. I think we differ a little bit on he's a strict vegan, and I tried a vegan protocol for a while, and it wasn't optimal for my biology. I think some people thrive on it, and some people don't. But ultimately, he was great. And I still listen to him sometimes. And then one of my early really wonderful mentors was actually in Los Angeles. I was living in Los Angeles at the time when I first found my first sort of alternative medicine doctor, and he had a very small clinic, and a Dr. Craig Jace, who just was amazing in terms of just being so open to listening to all the research and information that I could dig up and come in and to the office with. And he really worked with me and helped me, narrow down what ultimately was worth trying and what wasn't. So there's a lot of great information out there. Again, though, just, don't be overwhelmed by all the different paths and possibilities. Your health ideology, as you build it over time, especially when you've been on this path a while, is one where you start to go, okay, I'm gonna do this in a way that's digestible and manageable for my life. Because if you're working all day to be well, that's not going to be good for your nervous system, and your body's probably not going to respond to that very well. So it's more about, how do we do this in a way that it becomes a lifestyle over time that nurtures my biology, nurtures my spirit, and ultimately keeps me healthy.
Yeah, beautiful. So somebody had a question about the next film that you have coming up. I believe the name of it is Awakening. You want to share a little bit more about what that's about?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, Awakening is, we have a pilot episode right now, and it features a wonderful spiritual teacher, another wonderful mentor of mine, named John Prendergast, writer of several books. One of my favorites is called The Deep Heart. And we do an episode with him about his life and one of his students, and we're just sort of telling the stories of spiritual luminaries in each individual episode, getting a deeper dive, showing the humanity of them. Even though these spiritual teachers can be put on pedestals, the really authentic ones, the ones that embody divine knowledge, or that really help us find our own divinity, they often just have no real ego at all. I mean, they're just so present, and we want to show also that they're human and that they're facing a lot of the same things. And so it's really interesting to hear how they navigate life. How do they navigate the issues and the politics and the climate change and the and the things that break your heart on a daily basis? How do they navigate that with that sort of perspective that they've got, where they're coming from a more maybe grounded spiritual place, or a deeper understanding of things? So telling those stories, yeah, it's exciting to be able to have those conversations with people.
Awesome. Can't wait to see that. So thank you everyone for joining us for Heal Thyself with Gabe Golden. If you want more of Gabe Golden and the Lighting the Path, it is on, it's available now on our Stream Plus platform. Join Stream Plus now, and you can gain immediate access to this incredible program. You'll get access to Gabe Golden's 5 episodes, or the 6 episodes, I believe, of the Lighting the Path, plus the actual feature film, and a host of other incredible spiritual teachers and programs. We are proud to say that Humanity Stream Plus is the largest global streaming platform for conscious raising masterclasses and transformational education. We are a nonprofit and also give back with our 1-for-1 program, sharing our content with those who cannot afford the membership. I want to thank Steve Farrell, Dee Meyer, and the production team, Jim Gray, Garth Catterall, Abby Johnson, Nanette Kennedy, and the rest of Humanity's team. And especially today, thank you, Gabe Golden, for your wisdom.
Oh, thank you guys. I appreciate you having me and everything that Humanities Stream is doing.
Awesome. So go over now and join our Stream Plus platform and get access to this and so much more. Thank you all for joining us today.